And now, live from San Francisco, it's Barbara Simpson on Hot Talk 560, KSFO.
Hour number 3, believe it or not, right here on Hot Talk 560 KSFO. My phone number here is 808-5600. I'm Barbara Simpson, Babe in the Bunker, with you Sundays 4 to 7 at 6 o'clock. We have another whole hour tomorrow, or rather next Saturday. I'll be here at 5 to 7. And then next Sunday, 4 to 7. Works that way every weekend. I mentioned that we would be speaking this part of this hour with Mimi Steele. Mimi's been with us a number of times before, keeping us updated on what's going on with this Plan Bay Area, One Bay Area. And she is president of the SF Bay CAPR and also founder of Bay Area Liberty. She's a very busy lady. She doesn't make money doing this, but she is driven to get some sanity in what is going on in terms of the control that we have over our lives, over our towns, where we live, how we are transported, where we work. If you have not been paying attention or you're not aware of what's going on, you really must listen to what she's saying and check out her website, because all of this is going on in every community in the 9 Bay Area counties, but also across the state and, quite frankly, across the country. It's not unique to this area. And so she is with us now to give us an update. It's been a while since we talked, Mimi. How are you?
I'm great, Barbara. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So where are we now? What's been happening since the last time you and I talked?
So just to recap for people that are new to this, Plan Bay Area is a 25-year plan that combines housing, transportation, and land use. It's being promulgated by a bunch of unelected bureaucrats at the regional level. And the plan was passed on July 18th. This is a really dangerous plan. It sets a really bad precedent. And when I was doing some research, I found some documentation called the New Regionalist Approaches to Sustainable Communities. And what they talk about in this documentation is the fact that they need to reform things because local governments have failed. And so this whole concept is that we bump everything up to the regional level. It's unconstitutional, and all of these people who are unelected are making decisions that used to be done locally, where people used to, in their communities, have some determination about what their community looked like in the future. All of that is going away under this regional structure. It's really very insidious and dangerous.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned that they're saying that we need to reform because the local governments have failed. What, in their view, what have the local governments failed at? What are they not doing that they should be doing?
Well, so for example, one of the comments is the local governments need to, if there's a regional overstructure, then they're better able to distribute benefits and burdens. So basically, your tax money is going to get funneled into the big cities. That's what they mean by that. They talk about the fact that if you're just dealing with local cities, they don't promote equality among the region.
What do they mean by equality among the regions?
That means that people have their fair share of jobs and economic opportunity.
Who decides what's fair?
Well, hey, that's a $64 billion question. I mean,
only God knows, right?
They come out with these statements. I have another quote from this article. It talks about the fact that the existence of multiple local boundaries undermines regional collective action.
That's a mouthful. Say that again. The existence of local boundaries.
Yes. Undermines regional collective action. This is about the collective. Mm-hmm. This is about realizing equity, community, and participation. And then they say the new regionalism is a new form of governance. And then they end by saying it will enhance distributive justice. So hold on to your wallet ballots, everybody, because this is the future of the country if we let this keep going unchallenged.
Except it's not a new plan. It's what the communists have done all along.
Absolutely. You broke the code, only we call it something different in the United States. We call it regionalism. We call it social justice.
Yeah.
We call it sustainable community strategies. There are a lot of you were talking earlier about the language and changing the language.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that going on here. Because if you actually came out with the American people and you said, we want to do this and you have no control of it, people would say, baloney, we're not going to play this game. But that's not what they do. They have to be very subtle in how they structure things. So we had a vote on July 18th, which was the final vote to adopt Plan Bay Area. And when I got up to make my little pitch, I addressed them as comrades and commissars. I said,
"Oh, you're a troublemaker."
I know. I said, "Comrades and commissars, thank you for giving the illusion of public input."
Wow.
I mean, that's really what they were doing. Now, Mark Luce, who is the president of ABAG, he was interviewed recently, and I'll come back to that in a couple minutes. But he was interviewed recently, and he was asked why they didn't allow this plan to go for a vote of the people, and because that was one of the things we were pushing for. And he said something to the effect of people wouldn't know what they're voting for, and besides, he was elected to make decisions. And if you translate bull crap into English, you have to understand the arrogance of that comment. It implies that the citizens are too stupid to know what they're going to do.
Yeah, but that goes along, if you will, with Nancy Pelosi's comment about the health care bill.
Yes.
That you have to pass it before we know what's in it.
Yes, and by that time it's too late.
It's too late. Exactly right.
Yeah. The other thing is, when what he's talking about too, if you read between the lines, is he's essentially implying that he and the 35 people who voted for this plan,
35 people were involved in it?
35 people out of 7 million people in the Bay Area voted for this stupid plan,
mm-hmm.
and they're assuming they have perfect knowledge of the future. This is a 25-year plan, and they're making decisions about how people live and where they live, as you were saying earlier, for the next 25 years.
Let me ask you this. He said he was elected to make decisions.
Yeah.
Elected president of ABAG or elected to ABAG? I thought they were appointed.
They are appointed, and that's the glitch. They realize that's their Achilles heel because we've been harping on the fact that it's a bunch of unelected bureaucrats.
Right.
The way this works is that people are elected to a local office, and he happens to be a supervisor in Napa. And so the composition of this board is supervisors and the various elected city officials, but they're not elected to ABAG, so you can't go to the ballot box and vote them out of ABAG.
Right.
You'd have to know what he was doing, and most people don't understand what they're doing at this level in order to vote him out, and it would only be the people in Napa that could vote him out. So you've got this group of unelected appointed officials that are making these decisions, and they're effectively making local city councils and mayors obsolete, because one of the main things that they used to do at the local level was take care of zoning and make decisions about what the character of their town would look like. Mm-hmm. And none of this is happening under this plan, even though they like to tell you that there's local control. And I like to say, yeah, it's local control. I willingly give up my wallet when somebody holds a gun to my head.
Yeah.
That's voluntary, too.
So, listen, let's take a quick break. Okay. When we come back, I want you to just tell us briefly a couple of examples of the kinds of things that they are forcing on communities so people understand what we're talking about. And again, give me some insight into who's fighting back, because I know that we've talked about this before, and apparently there is beginning more of a pushback against this as people find out what's happening.
Yes.
I certainly know from the emails I've gotten, and you know that far better than I do. If you're just joining us here on KSFO, Mimi Steele is the lady you're listening to. You can go to her website, bayarealiberty.org or proprights.org/sfbay. We'll talk more about that, give you her Twitter, and you'll find out what they're doing to us as we speak. I'm Barbara Simpson. We will be right back.
On Hot Talk 560 KSFO.
Barbara Simpson, right here on KSFO, 808-5600. My guest is Mimi Steele, and we're talking about the One Bay Area plan and what's going on and how it's going to affect us. Now, you talked about what it was, Mimi. What type of reaction are you getting from some communities who don't really like the plan for their own communities? In other words, you're going to have to change your housing, you're going to have to change your zoning, you're going to have to accommodate low-income housing and different types of housing, the infill housing, have to deal with transportation issues, all of this, taking it out of control of your local government and going into the regional government, right?
Correct. Yes, and I think what's really interesting is as part of the process of going through Plan Bay Area, we put together a coalition of about 40 members and growing, 40 organizations that really united around the idea of local control. And so we have people of diverse political backgrounds uniting against this plan. And one of the groups is Citizen Marin. There's another group, Save Marinwood. Those people probably, I would say, would be more on the Democratic side of the House. We've got people from in the Orinda area. So if you're on the 680-24 corridor, there's a group called Orinda Watch that has gotten very active. And these people are going to planning meetings in the Citizen Marin area. I think they got 2 or 3 of the priority development areas removed because the citizens got involved and they told the planners and the city council, no, we don't want this. The Orinda Watch people actually submitted their own plan, a citizen's plan for how they wanted their city to look. So it's really important and it's really effective, and I would urge people to get involved and help us out here. The more people we have, the merrier. Now, the thing that's coming up that's really important, and I call this, we need some asymmetrical warfare, politically speaking.
Sounds like your strategy there, huh?
Yeah, that's my strategy. So there's a new bill that's come up, and it's called SB 1, Senate Bill 1. It was written by Darrell Steinberg, who's the same person who wrote the bill that produced Plan Bay Area, so this guy's not in our camp.
Yeah.
And basically, SB 1 was supposed to be voted on in 2013, and we dodged a bullet. They didn't have time to vote on it. So it's going to come up in January again. So part of what all of these groups are doing is uniting against SB 1. And what SB 1 will do is, number one, it will refund redevelopment agencies. So it'll actually fund Plan Bay Area, all of this high-density stack and pack housing. That's number one.
Well, supposedly we got rid of the redevelopment areas, so it's going to come back. Okay.
It's a zombie, we didn't
never get rid of it.
Something through the heart.
Okay.
So that's the one thing. The other thing it'll do is it changes the definition of blight. So blight will be called anything that isn't the optimal use of land. So what they can do is come to a town, for example, if you have an older town and you have a bunch of houses in your area that maybe you have 10 houses and there's 10 families in them and it holds 40 people.
Mm-hmm.
They can come and say, well, that's not the optimal use of land because we can put a 5-story stack and pack and we can house 500 people. So we're just going to declare all these homes blight. It's a very, very dangerous bill.
Now, wait, when you say we can just declare it, you mean the regional or the state would do that?
It
would be state if it's a.
I think the agency that comes out of SB 1
mm-hmm.
will be, which was the equivalent of the old redevelopment agency.
I see. Okay.
So it would probably be some combination of local and supervisors. But again, they're going to be incented to do this
mm-hmm.
With your tax money. So what we're going to do is. I recommend, and all of this is on my website. I've got different tabs. One tab is SB1, so people can go there, get a more detailed explanation. Go and write to your state senator and start now, write to your state senator, tell them we don't want this bill, and then hopefully in the January time frame we'll start getting people together and start lobbying in Sacramento so that they don't pass the bill. The other thing that's really interesting that I'm really excited about, I want to make sure that you knew about it, was I contacted Glenn Beck's organization, and he now has a great show on called For the Record. It's his challenge to 60 minutes, and right now it's a half-hour show. It's every Wednesday, and they've done some great stories about jihad and all kinds of things on Muslim terrorism and things like that. They are doing a story this Wednesday on us. Ah. So I'm really excited about it. If people are interested, they can go to theblaze.com/For the Record, and right now they still have the last one up from last week, which is Civilization Jihad.
Is it free?
No. You have to have a subscription, but if you go to that For the Record, it'll tell you how to watch, and you can subscribe for 2 weeks for free.
Ah, okay.
And so if you want to see this, and they also produce a DVD afterwards that you can buy, but if you want to see it, subscribe for 2 weeks, but it's really worth a subscription. It's only $10 a month. You get a lot of great
they're very good, and I would like to just make mention to folks, if you have Dish, you can get, Dish does have it, the Blaze, it's called BLAZE, and that's the Glenn Beck programming. Their programming is very good. My mother has it at her house, and I've seen it there. And I really have enjoyed it, but you can also join it, through the internet, and it's very reasonable, lots of good information. But you can just go to their website and check. But I didn't know they were doing this on you, so it's a half hour about one Bay Area?
It's going to be a half hour. The title of this is Model Cities, and I haven't seen the final version yet, but what ended up happening when I contacted them was, if you recall, right around the time that we voted for Plan Bay Area, Detroit went bankrupt.
Yes.
And so the story is going to be Detroit versus SF Bay Area.
Oh, boy.
So I don't know what the final thing is going to be, but they came out here 2 weeks ago and they interviewed several of us. And so what we're going to, I guess some of us are going to be on the show, and so it'll really be interesting to see how they juxtapose. It's a really complex issue.
Yes.
But the point that I pitched to them to get them to come out and do this was, we're the canary in the coal mine, and this is happening all over the country. And even if we can't save the Bay Area, hopefully we can tell people how this is happening and what to look for and what they need to do to protect themselves.
One of the biggest problems that we have here is that we have a population that tends to be very green, if you will, environmentally minded, and so they can be easily suckered into supporting plans like this, thinking that they're going to save the earth. I mean, there are people who believe that.
The irony about this, Barbara, is that even though this is pitched as something that's green, it actually is the opposite. It does not help the planet. It just creates congestion and chaos. There was an article by a gentleman named Joel Kotkin who talked about the new feudalism in the Bay Area, which is basically the fact that they're making housing unaffordable, because the other piece of putting everybody in this stack and pack housing is they're gobbling up all of the land all around the area and putting it up into open space.
Right.
And, in fact, there's some meetings coming up if you live on the Mid-Peninsula, and those are on my calendar, because what they end up doing with these people is, if you own rural property, they make it almost impossible for you to keep that property, because they surround you with parks, and then they restrict what you can do with your property, and you end up having to sell it to a park district for less than it's worth.
Which is the goal to begin with.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
It's nudge. First they nudge you when they want to control you. First they nudge you, and I think they expected the Bay Area would just roll over and go for all of this stuff. Now the people are aware and are pushing back, and I really have to take my hat off to the people that are up in Marin, because they're really pushing back hard, which is good. I mean, it helps us. It's not some crazy right-wingers that are out doing this. This affects everybody.
They're crazy left-wingers.
It's all wings.
Everybody. We're all crazy, but we got to save ourselves, and that's what all this is about.
Yeah. So, I mean, it would if it really did something to help the earth, maybe people could see it, but the bottom line is it's just a method of control, and that's what's really sick about this whole thing. And it's just like what's going on in Washington. I mean, why did they need to close down the monuments?
Yeah.
Because they want to control you. They want to intimidate you. They want you to sit down and shut up.
And they want you to see how they can control you. I think, people, they would never do something like that. Really? Take a look. They're doing it.
Absolutely.
No question.
I think people are getting the rude awakening as a lot of this stuff becomes public, and when you get beyond the messaging from the regional guys and you really drill down and see what the effect is in the local community,
right,
people are not happy. So the key, and I really have to take my hat off to you for giving us an opportunity to talk on your program, the key is educating people. We had the Blaze people contacted Ezra Rapport, who's the executive director of ABAG, and they asked to interview him about Plan Bay Area. And he said, I can't be interviewed because there's a lawsuit pending. Well, two days after he said that, he did an interview on ABC, local ABC channel on Plan Bay Area.
Well, they didn't want to do it because they don't like Glenn Beck. There's no question about that. Listen, can you stay a little longer than a half hour? Okay, let me put you on hold. We got a bunch of people with some questions for you.
Sure.
So hang on. Don't want to lose you there. Put you on hold. And those of you who are on the line, I will get to your calls right after this. If you're just joining us here on KSFO, I'm Barbara Simpson. My guest is Mimi Steele. We're talking about the Plan Bay Area. She's giving us an update on it. This is what they're planning to do in all towns, cities, communities in the 9-county Bay Area. You will lose local control. Bottom line, that's what it is. And more. We'll be right back on KSFO. Barbara Simpson here on Hot Talk 560 KSFO. Mimi Steele is my guest. We're talking about the Plan Bay Area. Got a number of people on the line, Mimi Steele, so let's get to the callers first, and then we can continue talking. Rob is calling from San Jose. There you are, Rob. You're on the air with Mimi and Barbara.
How you guys doing? Thanks so much for taking my call, guys. It seems to be that, HOV lanes and all these, exclusive parking spaces at places, new shopping centers that you're outlawed to park there unless you have the electric vehicle, or everything's being designed around these railway corridors. And personally, I would rather have the local transportation for my tax dollars go to take care of instead of a high-speed rail to Bakersfield. Mm-hmm. But it seems to be that they're started out with Rod Dearden, he's the cookie jar king, he calls himself a staunch Democrat, but he got this worthless, in-the-way, non-express system, always in the way at peak hours, light rail, that is subsidized, I think $10 every $1 spent.
What is got a question you want to ask Mimi?
Well, what I'm asking is that the plan is, Mimi, to get everything around railway corridors and lock people down to them, right?
Exactly. You're exactly right. And, I was talking about nudge and shove. They actually have a document that they produced about policy options. And the policy options are how to get people's behavior to what they want. Uh-huh. And so when you look at the kinds of things you're talking about, the HOV lanes and the parking issues, this is called traffic calming. They're doing it on purpose. The goal of smart growth is to eliminate the standards of congestion in the past and to produce congestion, because the theory is if they produce congestion, you will get out of your car.
That's right.
And there's a really good book I can recommend. It's by Randall O'Toole. You've had him on the program, Barbara, before. Yeah. It's called The Vanishing Automobile and Other Urban Myths. And he talks about this, and he has all of the statistics in here about how the light rail is inefficient. You have to almost have the density of Manhattan to make it efficient. And so, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to force us into that.
That's true. Thank you for your question, Rob. I appreciate that. And, I mentioned yesterday that you talk about slowing. They really do want to slow down traffic. There's no question about it. And there's a big article in the paper yesterday about the problems in Walnut Creek, that traffic is the biggest problem. You get stuck at a traffic signal there, and I sat 7 minutes at one light trying to make a left turn last week. I mean, it's just absolutely outrageous, but it's done intentionally. The lanes are made more narrow. You have the curbs are rounded out into the street, so you can't make a decent turn. They've made the parking more difficult. I mean, it's just insanity, and yet that's what's happening. Let's go to Steve in Marin. Go ahead, Steve. You're on the air with Barbara Simpson and Mimi Steele.
Yeah. Hi. This is Steve,
Yes.
and well, I'm actually calling because I'm in Marinwood, and I just kind of wanted to confirm everything that Mimi's saying. We are very active here. Our community is at the upcoming election. We're going to vote on 3 new candidates.
Good for you.
For our local office.
Good.
And so we're fighting back. And I guess the question is for Mimi is, what do we do to make sure the average person learns more about this? I mean, it's fine for us to listen to you on the broadcast, and we love the broadcast, but still we need to reach the everyday person.
That's right.
And what's the best way to do that?
All right, take your answer on the air, Steve, because that's an excellent question. How do you get people to know? I mean, I've run into that frustrating situation in my own community. It's really hard to get people to pay attention.
It is. I think one of the methods is coming up with a flyer that shows how this is going to impact people. Another method is set up meetings or offer to set up meetings and presentations around the area.
And you might do it neighborhood by neighborhood.
Neighborhood by neighborhood.
Yeah, get about 10 or 12 people on a couple of blocks and have one of them, bring some pizzas in if they want or coffee, yep, and have it in somebody's living room, and you can do that. Gradually, the word will spread.
Yeah, one of the things that Orinda Watch does is they have in there, and you can get on their website by going to orindawatch.org, they say in their documentation that if you're interested, we'll come to your house and we'll, get 10 or 20 neighbors together and we'll do it. The other thing is, Steve and I have talked in the past, and one of the things that he noticed, and he might want to chime in here, was that the people who will end up moving into his neighborhood with this program will actually end up making more money than the people that are subsidizing them because of all of the benefits they get. Do you want
I don't
to
understand. I don't know. He's not on the line anymore. I don't understand what you just said.
So what ended up happening was he did an analysis, and part of this program requires that you bring in low income people into your neighborhood, and he did an analysis which basically said that the people who have the low income, with all of the benefits they get, not only the housing but food stamps and everything, they actually end up making more money than somebody in Marinwood who's making $60,000 and paying taxes to support these people.
So you're talking just basically the people who are on some type of government welfare are actually, if you add up the value of everything they're getting, it's more than what somebody who has a job is getting.
Absolutely, and this is killing
That's disgusting.
The middle class, Barbara. There isn't going to be a middle class in California anymore.
No question. Let's go to Ann in Berkeley. Ann, you're on the air with Mimi Steele and Barbara Simpson.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
Hello, Mimi. This is, I've been ill a lot, so this may be more common than I happen to know about. I just started riding paratransit to get to and from the hospital. But as annoying as strips of lanes on the street being taken up by the bicycle lane, on 40th Street in Oakland, going from San Pablo Avenue east to the excuse me as I get tongue-tied, to the MacArthur BART station. Now, on the 2-lane street, they have the whole lane, one whole lane, painted green, and a sign indicating that when a bicycle is in that lane, it can take the full lane. So an automobile has to go over the next lane.
Well, and you're asking about that. Is that part? Take your answer on the air because I want to talk a little bit more about that. Thank you, Ann. I read, Mimi, that there is a new law in the state that about you have to, if you're passing a cyclist, you have to allow 3 feet of space from the side of your vehicle to where the bike is. So if the guy is riding on the bike, the white line rather, or a little bit into the driving lane, which they're legally allowed to do, you might be stuck behind him because there's no room to pass. And you can get a ticket if you're closer than 3 feet if you have a cop there.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that particular law, but it is in agreement with what they're trying to do. They're trying to get people. They're trying to make it painful to drive.
Yeah.
And so all of this stuff with the bike lanes and the bus lanes that they're talking about doing up and down El Camino, all of this is part of the overall plan to make sure that you're not driving your car. And it's just part of making it more difficult.
Are you familiar with the whole lane being painted green? I'd not seen that.
I haven't seen a whole lane painted green. Out here in the East Bay where I live, I've seen what was the bike lane now painted green. In Dublin, they have that all over the
really?
area now, too. Yeah. But it's not the whole lane. It's what was traditionally the bike lane. But they're trying to make it very obvious that they don't want a car there. And the other thing is, too, I think it's very dangerous to have these bicycles riding on the street.
But I'll tell you something. It never mind all the One Bay area and the green and all of that. It already was state law that, in fact, you have that the bikes can ride in the vehicle lane. They are considered a vehicle. I agree with you. I don't think they should either, but that is the law already, and I just find it insanity. But that's that's California.
You're going to get more of them, Barbara.
Why should I be surprised? It's California. Let's go to Alan in San Rafael. Hey, Alan, you're on the air with Barbara Simpson and Mimi
Hi,
Steele.
what a coincidence. I was driving through a freeway in Marina near Corte Madera, and up is springing this massive apartment building. And I thought, wow, this is bizarre. So I find on the marinij.com, just get your pencil out, marinij.com. On the left, there's news, and go to Larkspur Corte Madera section. And the article in front of me says that the Corte Madera approved of this huge project to meet the housing numbers outlined by the Association of Bay Area Governments.
There you go. That's it.
My jaw hit the floor when I was listening to you guys. I'm like, oh my God, I got to tell you guys this.
Well, it's actually going to get worse because the things that they're doing right now, there's an 8-year cycle of housing numbers. So what ends up happening is the state, through ABAG, dictates to every town how much housing they have to plan for in the future, and it's on an 8-year cycle. So even if you make your numbers this time, there's going to be another 8 years. Corte Madera is built out. There's no place to build but up.
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
The Corte Madera councilman said our hands were tied. And if you can't really tell in the article, but along the freeway there used to be a place that made styrofoam cups, and they went out of business or moved. But now there's this monolithic apartment complex, and you get this rubberneck effect. You look and go, what the heck is that?
Yeah. Well, you're right, and that's it. Thank you very much. And like Mimi said, there's going to be more of that.
You're listening to Barbara Simpson on Hot Talk 560 KSFO.
Barbara Simpson here in Hot Talk 560 KSFO. We are speaking with my guest, Mimi Steele. And Mimi, we've got a couple more people on the line. Let's try to get at least one more call in here. Who do we have? We have Jeff is calling from Mount Hamilton. Jeff, go ahead.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, go ahead with your question.
A few years back, being all the neighbors and all this stuff where I live, it's like extremely rural.
Yeah.
And everybody is basically on what they call the Williamson Act. And there was rumor that the state is trying to basically claim anything within 100 yards away from a waterway, a creek, a ditch, an old bit. And I was just wondering if Mimi knew what the plans were that they were going to enforce upon us.
I have heard that they were doing that in Napa area.
I'm pretty sure it's statewide.
Yeah, probably is. Are you familiar with that? It has to do with what you can do if you have a stream or something running through your property or adjacent to it. that you can't use the land a certain number of feet from, I guess, the high tide level if it's a tidal area or just from the edge of the water. Are you familiar with that, Mimi?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually even worse than that. They have something called ephemeral streams. So if you get a puddle on your property, and that's not too far of an exaggeration, they can come in and declare it wetlands. So there are a lot of things that are going on in the rural areas. I do put out information about the rural areas. That it's really important for rural people because they tend to be, independent people who do their own thing. To get organized, because what's happening is all of these organizations like the Sierra Club and Greenbelt Alliance, they're after your property, and anything that they can do to make it more difficult for you to live on your property, such as declaring, the water as something that you can't be around, anything they can do, they will do. There's actually a place up in Oregon that we talked to, and they declared 30 feet on each side of a creek that was an ephemeral creek. It was only there like certain times of the year.
Right.
30 feet on each side, they said the property owners could not do anything with that part of the property. So in some cases, it actually came up to their back porch.
Yeah.
And
this is a real thing, Jeff, and you've got to look into it. I would suggest that you look further, especially if you have something like that on your property. Thank you for that. I remember a few years ago, Mimi, that there was a case of the fairy shrimp up in Napa, where they only appeared when you had puddles after a rainstorm. And the fairy shrimp weren't there. Others, I guess they were under the ground or something. But there were whole areas of vineyards that they couldn't use the land. We just recently spoke with a lawyer who was representing some people in New Mexico who were facing the same thing. It was desert property, but they were claiming that it was a wetlands because, hey, when it rains, it gets wet. Surprise, surprise. But that's what they're doing. I mean, it really, as you said, it's an insidious movement on so many different levels. And this is why, I hate, sounds like I'm beating the same drum all the time. You have to get informed. People need to look into these things. You're not going to get it from television news. You're not going to get it from your newspapers. And you sure as hell aren't going to get it from the politicians because they don't want you to know.
Yes, it's our liberty at stake. I mean, the more I've dug into this over the past 2 years, the more concerned I've become. We are on the verge of losing it all. There's this pincher movement going on, and one of the key things of freedom is the ability to own private property.
That's right.
Do with it what you want. And they are so close to taking that away, and people have no clue. It's really disturbing.
And the thing is that you can own the property, but if they have laws and regulations where you can't use the property, then you really don't own the property, and besides you don't anyway because you got to pay property taxes. By the way, now this special program that is on the Blaze television, the Glenn Beck that you're going to be part of, is this Wednesday night?
It's Wednesday night at 8:30 Eastern Time, which would be 5:30 local, but then they stream it. They keep it up on the...
Okay, so go to theblaze.com and check on that. You can find out information. You can get a couple of weeks of it free, so you don't have to pay. If you want to pay on the Internet, I think it's only $5 or $10 a month, which is cheap enough. If you're on Dish, they carry it, so, you can include that in your package. And I really urge you folks to check it out. And if you think, it doesn't apply to me, yes, it does. We had the caller who was talking about this great big building that was going on in Corte Madera. I was driving through the community of Lafayette, I guess in the last month or so, and I was stunned by this couple of giant, I guess they're apartment buildings that are going up on the main street right through town. I mean, all of these towns that used to be nice little towns are not going to be nice little towns anymore. They're so overbuilt, and it's just starting. I really, really urge you to pay attention to what is happening.